Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I want to talk about applying to medical school and how much it costs. So I don't know about you guys, but before I applied to medical school, I really did not understand how much it actually costs. And I wanted to make this video for anybody that's applying to med school soon, or you're thinking about it and you kind of want to understand how much it will end up costing you and how much you should budget. I just want to make a disclaimer that this is my experience, so your experience could be completely different. And I will touch on that in a few different parts of the video, how you might spend more on something, you might spend less on something. So try to take it with a grain of salt, but I hope you guys find this helpful, and let's jump right into it. So when you really think about it, something that you need to apply to medical school that's extremely expensive is getting your undergraduate degree. However, I'm not going to talk about that because I don't think anybody would find that interesting. Obviously, I'm sure you guys know that you need to have your college degree before you apply to medical school. So once we skip over that and we start with what you need for the actual application process, the first thing that I think about is the MCAT. So for the MCAT, you may decide to study on your own, you may decide to get a tutor, you may decide to take a class. I took a class and my class was $1,800, and I think it was like a 3.5 month class or something like that. And I know that sounds really expensive, but I have actually learned that there are classes that can be like many more thousands of dollars. And I remember the other ones I was looking at the time were closer to like $2,500 or $3,000. So I was okay with $1,800, honestly. I thought that was like decent for the amount that I was actually getting out of the class, and I felt like it was worth it. However, obviously that is a big expense, and that's not something that you need to take the test. I just want to include it here as that is something that I did use in my journey with applying to medical school. So another thing that you might want to get is some MCAT study books. So I remember I got a used bundle off of Amazon. I think it was like a few years dated, but honestly, they're like all the same. And I think it was Kaplan. And I paid, I think about like $95 for it. And then the class that I was taking required us to get a few exam crackers books, and I think those were maybe around like $20 a piece. And I think I ended up getting, I can't even remember now. I think I ended up getting like 3 of them. So we're just gonna go with that, 3 for $20. And then the $95 bundle of all the Kaplan books, which leaves us at $155 for my books in total. Now, I'm not sure if that's exactly right, but that's like a pretty good estimate of what I spent. If you prefer a specific company, then I would recommend doing that and getting a bundle of books, like all the Kaplan books in one, because it will usually be cheaper that way. However, I think certain companies make better books for different subjects, so you might want to mix and match. And I think for certain Kaplan books, like the Cars one and a few others, like the bio one, I got the exam crackers ones. So a few of them, like I honestly never even opened them. So you do have to be mindful of that and then figure out what will be the best, most effective thing for you. So then we get to the actual test itself and registering for the test. So unless you have a fee waiver, which I'm not going to talk about fee waivers, I'm just going to talk about overall prices. But if you have a fee waiver, then this obviously doesn't apply to you. But if you look at the actual price to register for the exam, it is $320, which I think is honestly ridiculous. I don't know why it has to be that expensive, but whatever. So that is $320 if you are like me and you took the exam one time. However, I know a lot of people take it maybe twice or 3 times. So you do have to be mindful of that and recognize that if you do have to retake the exam, you're going to be paying another $320, and it's very hefty. And that's another reason why I think only taking the exam once is obviously the most ideal solution. I mean that and like a million other reasons, obviously, that I'm sure you guys can imagine. But if you are possibly retaking it, you just kind of have to keep that in mind. Another thing that I did get for the MCAT was a bundle from the AAMC. And I think that was around $268. It was an online bundle. It came with a ton of practice questions and a few different practice tests. And that was so useful for me because that like really prepared me for the test. And then lastly, something that I literally totally forgot about until just now was that I got a next step package or like subscription or whatever it's called to take some of the next step exams, which I think Next Step is not Next Step anymore. I think it was bought by another company and now has a different name. If so, I'll try to put the new name somewhere here. But I think it was a $99 package, or not package, I don't know why I keep saying that, like subscription or fee or whatever it's called for a few months. And I think I got 4 or like 6 exams out of it. I'm sorry guys, it's been like so long since I applied to med school and I was studying for the MCAT. So I think it was something like that, and I did pay around $100 for that. So the total with everything combined is $2,487, which is honestly crazy. I mean, it's not really that surprising now that I'm thinking about it, because I did include the class, which was $800, but it just adds up. Like, it's so crazy how much it costs when I actually think about it. If you guys want to get a better understanding of if you should go for a class or if you should buy the Next Step bundle or the AAMC bundle, things like that, I would recommend checking out one of my MCAT videos on how to study for the MCAT, and that will really help you understand what I actually found helpful, at least. So moving on to the actual application, I ended up paying for the MSAR. I don't know if it's like a database or what it's called exactly, but it's essentially where you can see a lot of information on different medical schools. It will tell you like average GPA, average MCAT score of people that were accepted, information on the grading policy of the schools, just a lot of information, and it really helps you figure out where you should apply to medical school. It's $28, and I think this is just another thing that people should not have to pay for, but it is only, you know, $28, which is cheap compared to everything else you're paying for medical school, so it is what it is. And then we get to the application itself and how much each application cost. And this is something I had no idea about before I applied to med school. So essentially how it works is you first have the primary application, and that just by itself with one school is $170. And then for each additional school that you apply to, you pay an extra $41 per school. So I ended up applying to 25 schools. So in total, that would be $1,195 just for my primary applications for all the schools that I applied to. And if that wasn't enough, then we get to secondary applications, which just continue to get worse because not only do you have to pay MCAS for each school, but you have to pay the schools directly when you submit your secondary. So I think that secondary applications can go anywhere from like $50 to like $200 for just one school. For the schools that I applied to, I think it ranged from about $75 to maybe like $110, $120. I think the average is about $100 per school. So I would recommend budgeting about $100 for each school that you apply to. And for me, with 25 schools, that ends up being $2,500. And then another thing just to think about is that you may have to pay for college transcripts and having those sent in. So I know that certain schools don't charge any fee. My schools, I think only like 1 or 2. I had like 4 schools, I think. So I think maybe 2 of them ended up charging, and sometimes they can be like $8 or $10. So in total, that would be an extra $20. So if you add all of that up, that is $4,435 just to apply to schools and put in all that work. Now, the next cost is interview attire. Now, I wasn't really sure if I should include this, as I know that the past year interviews were virtual and I'm not really sure what they're doing next year. I did look into this and I was Googling, and I think a few schools are pretty set with continuing to do virtual Zoom interviews, but I know that some schools are not really sure what they're doing, if I'm correct. So for my interview attire, I spent about $500, including my suit, my shoes, my bag, and my belt, and like everything together I think was $500, which I know is a lot of money. You definitely can find cheaper things. So I do know that is a lot, but I kind of have the mindset of if I'm getting a high quality suit, I'm gonna wear it in the future. I can have it for my residency interviews, any other interviews that I need to have it in the future. As long as I can still fit into it, then I won't have a problem. So this one can be really variable and it is up to you, but this is something that I did choose to spend a little bit more money on. And then we get to interview costs, which is where it gets a little bit crazy because this can vary greatly. I actually spent, I think personally, on the lower side compared to a lot of other people I know. I was very lucky in that I actually didn't have to take any flights. I don't know why. I applied to medical schools that were fine distance away. I just didn't get interviews at any of them. So I would just keep that in mind that happened to me. I know a lot of people though, they didn't get like any interviews in their home state. If they're from California or another really competitive area, they had to take really long flights and fly all around the country. So I think it really just depends, and I would keep that in mind. So I drove to most of my interviews, and then I was able to just visit for the day and then go back home. And then the two that I did have to rent hotels for, one of them I said was out of state and the other one was actually in state. But it was very far upstate, not really where I'm from, so I did have to get a hotel for that one too. I think for the first interview that was upstate, I spent around $200, and the other hotel was $260. Now, you might be asking, why didn't you just stay with a student at the medical school and just save money on hotels and not have to pay for that? So that was actually my goal, and I think that if you are interviewing and you can get a place to stay with a medical student, I would definitely do that. Because then you get to, I guess, like get to learn about the school a little bit from someone that actually goes there, someone that's like not connected to admissions, and get their personal opinion and what they think about the school. But the first time I went for the interview, I actually had a medical issue that happened about 1 or 2 weeks before. And so I had to rent a hotel room for that. Not getting into too much detail, that can be like another story time on its own. But I basically got injured, so I actually had to have my mom come up with me and stay in the hotel room with me, and she actually drove me and helped me out and helped me get ready and everything like that. And then the other school that was the $260 hotel school, I was actually a little bit upset about because I had literally since like the time I got the interview, I submitted a request to get matched with a student, and they basically never got back to me until like very close to when the interview actually was. I think maybe it was like a week or two before the interview when I kept emailing them to find out, and they told me they had no one that I could stay with, and I was actually looking to Airbnbs in the area, and they were really sparse actually. I was very surprised, but I could barely find any Airbnbs in that area. The hotel that I did end up staying in was literally on campus, and I was going by myself. I wasn't bringing a car or anything. I was taking the bus down there, so I ended up just booking that. Everything else honestly would have costed me about the same amount of money, or it would have been very difficult to actually get to the interview once I found maybe like a cheaper hotel that wasn't as close by or something like that. So besides the hotels, I also spent $24 on a bus that took me to the interview, where I spent the $260 on the hotel. So in total for my travel, I spent $484, which again, you might spend less than that. You might spend a lot more on that if you have to fly to the other side of the country and you have to do that multiple times. So again, it's just very personal. It depends on your experience, but I hope that gives you an idea of how I was able to make this work. Okay, that's pretty much the bulk of everything, but I did want to include something lastly, and that is acceptance deposit. If you get accepted to a school, you have to pay a security acceptance deposit, and essentially what that is, it's usually around $100. And then let's say you don't want to go to that school and you end up choosing another school, so you will get that money back as long as you deny your admission by whenever it is in like April or May. I think it's like the last day of April that you're allowed to choose schools and make your decision. If you end up deciding to go to that school, I think that goes to like the first $100 of tuition or whatever it is. However, if you were in the situation that I was, where you got accepted into a school off the wait list after that April deadline, so I got into the school that I go to now in, I think like mid-May. I think it was like May 11th or something like that. So I had already put down the $100 with a different school, and I couldn't end up getting that back because when the deadline came around, I was still going to that school. So I just had to, lose that $100 and then put another $100 security deposit at the school that I was accepted to off the wait list. I just wanted to include that so you guys know that that is something that could happen potentially. Hey guys, so I just finished editing this video and I realized I never actually told you the total of what I spent. So the total was $8,189. All of that just to apply to medical school. Alright, so that is pretty much it. That's everything I wanted to talk about. I hope this gives you guys an idea of how expensive it is to apply to medical school. Not that I want to deter you guys in any way from applying if that is what you want to do, but just so you can budget and you have an understanding of maybe what you need to put aside for that, and you have an idea of how many schools you should aim to apply for or whatever it is, just so you know that it is expensive and it definitely is a financial commitment. So I really do hope that you guys found this helpful, and if you did, please like, comment, subscribe, whatever you can do to help me out. And I really appreciate you guys watching the video. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye guys.